We're now seeing like cross sectors where NFT projects are using DeFi to their advantage, social tokens are using DAOs to their advantage. I don't think it's a new sector. I think it's just a mending of all the popular sectors we've seen and combining them in such a way that you can take, the diehard supporters of DeFi, mix them with the diehard supporters of NFTs, and create sort of platforms that have the best of both worlds, and trying to just like, stop this tribalism that's such an issue, not only in the wider crypto landscape, but even in Ethereum, right? Like we see DeFi people who say NFTs are stupid, NFT people who say that DeFi is stupid, like just lowering those really dumb barriers and like unifying the whole space. That's kind of what's got me excited about like the composability of the sectors as a whole.
Layer 1 is a podcast and community dedicated to helping you master all things crypto. We'll be bringing you the best interviews with project executives, technical analysis for trading of the most popular cryptocurrencies, and insight into what's actually happening behind the scenes.
As you join us each episode, you're going to hear about tokens, fundraisers, investments, and even crypto conspiracies. But please remember that nothing we say should be considered financial or legal advice.
Come join us on this journey, and welcome to Layer 1. All right, good morning, good evening, good night. Guys, this is going to be round 2 of this interview. We had a couple different hiccups. I spilled water all over my keyboard here, which I wasn't going to tell you guys, but now that it's round 2, we'll just run it. So we've got a really good guest, a recurring guest on here, Cooper Turley, who we'll get to in a second. We're going to talk DeFi, social tokens, NFTs, just everything, because he seems to be involved in all of it. So we'll talk to Cooper here in a second. But Dimitri, what's going on today, man?
Yeah, man, there's lots of things going on in crypto today for sure. And as you mentioned, we have an exciting guest that's, basically in the front of everything in terms of different sectors in crypto. And we love to have those kind of guests because then we can just peel this market off and kind of talk about each segment, in detail. So, yeah, like you mentioned, Q, you got Cooper.
Yeah, we have Cooper Turley from the Audius Project. And the audio token, which we'll get to in a second. He handles the community over there. We're -1. The last time Cooper was on, we had Lucas. So shout out to Lucas wherever in the world he is. But Coop, what's going on today, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you guys so much for having me out. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right, so let's touch on. We didn't do this on the first run, but let's touch on your move to LA, man. I think that's a really cool topic. What's this move to LA about, and how are you doing out there?
I'm doing really well, man. For the past year, I've basically been traveling to Ethereum conferences, being a digital nomad as much as I could. I think with COVID, everyone got a little bit more locked down. For me, I was really just looking for a change of scenery. I want to try and do what I can to take crypto to new audiences. And being in LA, tons of creative people here, tons of people willing to experiment with new technologies. So just kind of felt like the right move on all fronts. I'm absolutely loving it here so far.
Yeah, for those of you that aren't familiar with Cooper, he's dabbled in DeFi. I think he's dabbled in DAOs with the creation of MetaClan, just been all over the space pretty much. And I know he has the personal token agency, which we'll get to later in the episode. But there is an underpinning of the change of scenery that you mentioned. I think DeFi has been tiring for all of us over the past, specifically for the guys that have been neck deep in all that stuff. So kind of let's get a recap there. And I know I want to get into that shift towards what you're doing now, but let's get a recap on DeFi, kind of a post-mortem, although it's not dead, it's going to go forward and evolve. But what do you make of the recap on DeFi, and where do we go from here?
Yeah, so obviously yield farming was a really hot topic for quite a long time. The past few months, I think it's what's on everyone's radar. For those not familiar out there, basically you put your capital somewhere, you earn a yield in return. Started out with just stablecoin lending, putting DAI in compound, getting a nice attractive APY. And then this whole governance token thing came into the mix. So basically new projects were just incentivizing you to put liquidity in their protocol. And we started to see all these crazy run-ups on hot new governance tokens going to market with quote unquote fair launches, people basically chasing whatever the highest yield were. And, we kind of hit this tipping point where there was diminishing returns, where the quality of the farm started dropping off. The caliber of the projects and the teams launching them sort of got less and less high quality by the day. And I think that for all of us, we just needed to take a step back and be like, hey, what are we doing here? What were the values that got DeFi to where it was before price was a thing? And how do we sort of get back on track with bringing this to an audience that's not repeating the same woes of 2017?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. A little bit of a cooling is better. It's better for the market than continuous just bubble growth and having the quality diminish constantly. So, we definitely see great players coming out of this, and building more and making new exciting things instead of just kind of a copy of the same thing. that we've been experiencing in DeFi. And what is next for DeFi? Now that we're here, right, there's been talk about the fact that, wrapped BTC is being used, that's being put to work. Do you see kind of, exciting things that are coming up for DeFi before we kind of hop into NFT and social tokens?
Yeah, I mean, I think just governance actually taking center stage is really important. For a long time, governance was just a joke. People didn't really care about it. With token distributions, it started to become more commonplace. And now I think we're going to really start to see protocols and players like double down on what that actually means, like tangibly decentralizing the protocol in a way that it really is immutable and unstoppable, and sort of finding those key community members to like really champion this whole decentralized finance movement that we're all here for. No one wants just to kind of build the same financial system again. We want to create it in such a way that value-added actors can have a voice in these systems. So I don't think that trend's going to go away anytime soon. Yeah,
I remember the last time you were on, you were talking about protocol politicians, and it was still kind of, I guess, theoretical at that point. There wasn't really like a kind of active role out there for any protocol politicians, or at least not a lot as we see now. So you have that FireEyes DAO. I know we talked about that. We were going to have you on like a week, I would say like a couple weeks ago for FireEyes, but I know you said that you guys were still in kind of grind mode, work mode. So what are you guys doing at FireEyes DAO now before we hop into social tokens? Let's jump on DAOs.
Yeah, so we work with teams on governance and basically community development. So basically, if you're launching a token or you're looking to push out an update, how do you structure it in such a way that someone with $10 is equally as cited as someone with $1 million? And basically just bridging the gap between these billion-dollar protocols and sort of like grassroots style that I kind of came up on. I think that governance is an easy topic to sort of tout out there, but to actually do it right, there's a lot of conversation around narrative, metrics, blueprints to basically rolling out token developments in a way that gets the community excited. So, we've been working alongside a couple really exciting teams and basically just helping to bridge that gap between the DeFi trends that we see doing well and sort of innovating on where we can take ideas and primitives and sort of crafting them for new projects in their respective market.
So let's hop into, the NFTs and the social tokens. They've been around for some time, right? And it seems like just recently we saw, the market basically start picking it up and everybody started getting excited about it, right? What was kind of the catalyst there that kind of pushed it to the front of the line, when it was really dominated by DeFi mostly? Now we're seeing, NFTs and social tokens are, picking up as far as, popularity goes. So what do you think was the catalyst for that?
Yeah, I think there's two things. First and foremost, being able to make an index bet on an NFT platform. In the past, all you were able to do is basically buy one-off NFTs and sort of hope that that individual item was going to go up in value. Now we're starting to see governance tokens for NFT platforms, so you can kind of participate in a more passive manner without super specialized knowledge on that market. And then two is really just accessibility and curation. Specifically with social tokens, I don't think that everyone knows about tokenomics, governance, sort of all these really deep inner workings. But with something like social tokens, just saying, hey, take these tokens and join a group with other people who hold the token, it's much more easier to digest. And I think that as a whole, we're just sort of looking for new ways to make these concepts more palatable to new users. And both NFTs and social tokens are very effective in sort of communicating that value to newer, more casual users.
What do you think about just in general that we've seen some of the success from communities that have been building with these social, tokens and distributing to the community? Like Meme, for example, was a fantastic story, right? We had him on our channel. It was very interesting to interview. Kind of the founder that didn't really realize what it's going to become. Is that kind of something more that we're going to see where you have a community and then you have distribution of the token that doesn't necessarily maybe have a function yet, but then the community comes up with the function and then builds out, the overall platform like we've seen with Meme? Or is it going to be more structured where it's like, okay, here's the community and here's the token from the foundation and that's how it's going to be used and it's going to be dictated by the foundation itself?
Yeah, so Meme was a really, really interesting example. I think that it's going to be highly difficult to recreate that. I think that, in fact, many teams will just build a product first and then try and tokenize it. I do think there's something to be said for like getting all your most value-added actors together in a group and sort of having discussions on roadmap, feature implementation, whatever it may be. It's like there's definitely some overlap there, but the common trend here is just basically like figure out who's most active in your community and build mechanisms to get your tokens into those users' hands as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I love that model. And that's something that we're implementing here at Layer One. And it's going to be an amazing journey here in October and beyond. So, yeah, definitely want to touch on these personal tokens real quick. I promise we'll get to Audius guys that are here for that. So, you have personal token agency, you're working with Jam, you're working with Coin, and I believe Alex. Those are your kind of three flagships. What was the genesis of that? And why, instead of kind of going the route of maybe creating a coup token, why did you say, hey, let me manage this instead?
I think the space is so early. For me, I just wanted to kind of create more standards, create more tooling. Social tokens as sort of a narrative make a lot of sense, but when you get into the nitty gritty details, creators still really struggle with how to structure their project. There's a lot of overhead and stress that you just don't really think about when it comes to like liquidity, OTC sales, basically use cases and governance, and just like being a helping hand and a sounding board for creators to like run their ideas off of and be like, hey, this is a good idea, this isn't. I think that the community will respond well to this. Not only was it selfishly good for me to be able to figure out what a coup token might look like in the future, it was really interesting to see different creators working on different verticals and trying to tie them all together under this vein of social tokens and the tools that connect them all.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how all three of those tokens specifically that are under that personal token agency umbrella do you have plans in the future to have those kind of work synergistically together? Is there any plans there? I know Coin had a bunch of mechanics for her token kind of come out here and that team's token. Give us an update on some of these tokens that you're working with.
Yeah, so actually yesterday we launched RAC, Grammy award-winning musician. He launched the social token. I'm helping with that rollout as well. To your point about cross-pollination, I think we're looking for a bunch of ways to basically collaborate. There's a very small sector right now of people who believe in social tokens and trying to like align them more with different ideas and mechanics. So for example, there's a hackathon coming up. It's called the Seed Club Hackathon. It's specifically geared on social tokens. All the creators I'm working with are offering bounties where basically they offer $3,000 worth of prizes to people who build specific tools for not only their platform, but basically anyone using social tokens. And so just sort of like creating like a wholesome sector where all these creators who have social token have active discussions going on, have active collaborations going on. There's going to be an endless number of ways in which all these are going to sort of play into one another.
Awesome. So we've gotten to the point in the conversation where I think social tokens run up right next to what you're doing at Audius. So let's talk about what the Audius platform is and what the potential goals are there with the audio token and kind of personal tokens for maybe each creator on the platform. I could definitely see a future how that works. But yeah, what's going on with you and Audius?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Audius is a decentralized streaming protocol. I kind of came up on the SoundCloud wave and basically spent my whole college career being a SoundCloud curator. I worked for a blog called This Song Is Sick, just curating as much high quality music as I could. And, one of the big problems with SoundCloud was that, the artists there didn't really capture a lot of monetary value from the value they created on the platform. We saw artists with hundreds of thousands of followers making no money off of their music. And for me, I think Audius is a unique opportunity to basically take these Web3 primitives and offer that upside to the people creating the most value in the form of these audio tokens. So basically what we've been working on is how do we get tokens into the hand of the most value-added creators and curators? And how do we sort of create tooling around, what monetization looks like in a Web3 world? I'm not entirely sold on like royalty rates being the end-all be-all solution for musicians. So like adding a token into the mix or adding like social tokens where you can sort of better gear your attention towards a select group of people. I just want to take a step back and think like, hey, how do we get artists better paid for the value they create? And how do we build that natively into a streaming protocol to do that?
That's awesome. Yeah. And, I'm a fan of SoundCloud myself. I've been using it for many years. And I wish, there was a service that would actually curate the music for me, right? That would be amazing. But in regards to Audius, it's interesting, right? The project, and it sounds like everything is good in terms of fixing the market for the artists, because artists have been undermined for a long time in terms of getting paid out. They've been getting paid very small, right, fractions of a pennies. And then there's also the settlement issues with it, right, where they don't receive the funds until X amount of time. And we've come across actually projects in the past, back when we were ICO Alert, that were trying to kind of do something like this, where they would get the artists paid, get them more exposure. The project didn't really, pick up or develop into something meaningful. They were building on the Hendera hash graph, and the reason why they chose it is because it was the most, kind of friendly in terms of microtransactions. So, this platform is going to be in Ethereum, and I wanted to hear your thoughts about, the microtransactions and the royalties that are going to be paid out, and the gas fees that are associated with the Ethereum network. Is there going to be some kind of a solution in place that will, kind of streamline this?
Yeah, so I think there's one really important thing to touch on. So Audius's approach was very much, go non-crypto native first. So there's about 700K monthly active users who have no clue there's any blockchain happening under the hood right now. There's no transactions happening on there. You're basically storing content on IPFS as sort of like the primary integration with blockchain. Basically, in the future, we're going to look to turn on sort of micro payments using meta transactions and using some other partnerships with some other blockchains that are helping to expedite those things. But I think it's really important to recognize that we didn't want to start from making this crypto native and like the best solution for people who already have MetaMask. The entire platform was designed in such a way that anyone who's ever used SoundCloud can get onboarded here and sort of benefit from the native feature integrations that have nothing to do with blockchain. And then from there, gradually introduce these features like governance tokens, like you mentioned, micro payments, social tokens, creator coins, and sort of like use it as a stepping stone to better engage people in a way that sort of other projects in Web3 have, in my opinion, sort of failed to get people to care about it in the first place.
Yeah, we're super focused on trying to create something here at Layer 1 where both the creator, the community, the participants, we can all kind of benefit in this together. So I think it's definitely a good conversation we're about to have and are having. I want to get into the timeline. I want to get into the roadmap of where you see kind of social tokens and where you see the audio token going. But right now, what is that model? So you from a user perspective and a creator's perspective, what does that model look like with paying out creators, with users? Do they have to pay a subscription for this service? What does that look like today?
Yeah, so today there's no form of value exchange happening. You can think of it as SoundCloud V1, when basically it's just free transactions or no transactions, honestly, like just kind of curating streams in the best way possible. What we're looking to do is basically reward, if streams are aggregated to a creator, if they're aggregated by a curator, rewarding them with this governance token and sort of giving them the opportunity to shape the future of the protocol. We don't want to start out and try and make microtransactions and royalty payments present from day one. We want to sort of bridge this gap where the users can really own this platform and shape it in the way that they see fit. And then when it reaches such a point where there's a sufficient user base and a growing community and whatnot, then governance can turn on and say, hey, we think that trying to work in this royalty rate model actually makes sense. It's been one that's been historically incredibly difficult to try and become profitable with. Even Spotify today is not profitable. So I think in terms of like picking our battles, just introducing earning governance tokens as a means of income that's never been possible before, that feels much better to me than trying to enable microtransactions and, just try and use royalty rates as the way that we sort of disrupt this whole music industry.
Yeah, we have had some content platforms on the podcast before. Most recently, I believe it was Library. And obviously, one of the questions that we want to ask is censorship. We've seen Joe Rogan go over to Spotify and immediately have issues. So if the guy that big is getting censored, what do you think they can do with the smaller fish? So what are you guys doing? There obviously is a little bit of a line. You got to stray. You can't stray too far one way or the other. So what do you guys do as far as censorship is concerned on the platform?
Yeah, so the entire, all the content hosted on the protocol is owned by node operators. Audius as a company does not have the ability to take down content. We have very good relationships with our validators and node operators, but the entire protocol is permissionless in the sense that takedowns are issued as a collective consensus by node operators rather than, someone going and saying, hey, Audius, take this down, and then they have to remove it tomorrow. So like the protocol is designed in such a way that the core team wants to step back from it and really let the users of the protocol be the collective arbiters of that. So it's a very different model when you think about something like Spotify or SoundCloud or really just any streaming company in history so far. So it's very early. It's one that I don't have like a perfect answer for given how we haven't had any issues with that to date yet. But it's one that is a very hot topic for sure and one that's going to get continually more and more convoluted as time goes on.
Gotcha. And these guys that are artists that are streaming music or creating music on the platform, who are they? Are they the creators of that specific soundtrack from scratch, or like are they DJs that maybe like mix together and put together like a mix of tracks that have been done by somebody else? Talk to me a little bit of what is the target there for the artist.
Yeah, it's a combination of both. We've actually seen that live sets have historically performed really well on Audius, just long form content in general. So one of the most popular mixes on there right now is Bauer and Party Favor. They have a Brownies and Lemonade set, and it's one of the most popular tracks on the platform. we have everyone from like deadmau5 to Zed's Dead, Rez, a bunch of electronic acts that are on there, to just like your small grassroots artists who are uploading beats, remixes, just sort of all the cutting edge stuff if they're just starting out. So it's a very healthy mix right now. And I think our goal is to support any form of audio. Traditionally this is catered well to bass artists, but basically using that as a sounding board to allow anyone with, whether it's music, podcasts, whatever it might be, to be able to upload it to a decentralized protocol that has tooling in place to make it easy to engage with that to your audience.
Gotcha. And then also right now, where you guys are in terms of growth, do you guys see any specific markets that are picking up, or you just kind of, is it mainly US or Europe or any other markets that you see more pickup in terms of artists or users on your end?
Yeah, so I think US and Europe are our primary markets. We've gone from about 200,000 monthly users to about 700,000 in the past 2 months. So like we just released this API to basically allow people to stream Audius music in a variety of places. And that has just like hyperbolically, catalyzed the streams on the platform. More Audius are starting to become familiar with it. We had a live stream with Kenny Beats the other week. He's just kind of talking about the protocol and learning more about it. So we're in this really interesting discovery phase where it's not by any means a household name yet, but I think that there's a lot of artists who are, they very much care about owning their own content and having a voice over the protocol. And they're very much aligned with sort of what we're building here. It's really, really fascinating to see play out live, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how you guys grow the platform. It's interesting that you came from DeFi, which is this like super hyper focused community that really has a ton of knowledge on what they're doing. If not, that barrier to entry is just extremely high. And then now you're moving into trying to teach brand new people about crypto. I wonder how you go about that. I've always been fascinated with Dapper Labs. They've done a seemingly great job of explaining crypto to people in very easy ways. What's your kind of thesis on trying to do that for new crypto users?
Yeah, it's just simplifying the terminology. I don't think that we're going to try and pretend that the average user is going to participate in protocol governance, but they can get on board with saying, hey, I own a piece of this protocol for using it, and basically creating the tools and features so you can just claim Audius token in one click, stake it for issuance and stuff like that. For me, coming from DeFi, I like to pride myself on making these concepts easy to understand. It's something that I've found a lot of success in. And having written about DeFi so actively for the past year, again, going back to earlier point, I wanted to take a step back and say, like, how do we reach new audiences? How do we get this technology into the hands of new users? And to me, Audius was like the perfect middle ground where there's an active community. Many of them don't know anything about crypto, and it's sort of my job to help make them care about it in a way that's actually enticing and engaging.
Me and Dimitri were talking before the episode about Audius and how you're kind of aggregating all of these different creators, and it's an interesting point for you because you are interested in this personal token, as well, along with the audio token. So it's kind of getting you right up next to some of these content creators. Is there a plan possibly to have these content creators have their own token?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key distinction that we've made is Audius is not an issuer of social tokens; it's an aggregator of them. We're basically building distribution mechanisms. So as someone who has a social token, you can deposit it into Audius and then use our algorithm to distribute it to people who are playing your content, who are, engaging with playlists that you make and stuff like that. There's obviously a fine line there between, like, in the future, I imagine creators will be able to issue through Audius. But what we want to do is basically allow people like RAC, the people who are super familiar with this space, to sort of be our first use cases of like, hey, if I stream RAC's music on Audius, maybe I'll get 1 token per play, and then he can basically host unreleased content, stems, remix contests, and only people with a certain amount of tokens are able to access that.
So you guys are integrating social tokens into the platform now. I was not aware of this whatsoever.
It's very new still. It's not live today. It's something that we're working on behind closed doors, and one that'll probably roll out a couple months after the mainnet launch later this month.
Speaking of rollout, does this put you in competition with Roll if you're going to be able to create a social token on Audius in the future? Is that a competition to Roll?
No, I think that we actually have been very intentional about not competing with like the various issuers of the world. There's, Roll, Rally, Zora's getting into the space now. We believe that just sort of hosting distribution mechanics for any social token is a much wider net than sort of competing to get creators to issue directly through us. I do think that there will be like specific use cases where we work with creators on issuing, but we don't want to sort of become this issuer for social tokens. We just want to build the tooling around social token distribution to get those tokens in the hands of value-added users.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. That was a good question. And the reason YQ asked how do you explain the complex stuff of crypto is because I believe he recently tried to explain to his father something about LADs, I think, and now you know
That didn't go so well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but anyway, you know, moving along with this, I wanted to ask you, you know, so like one of the things you mentioned is the feature in terms of like, all right, if you hold X amount of tokens, right, you can get access to, let's say, a specific remix or maybe exclusive content from that artist. You know, what are some other ways that you think social token can be used? You know, could it be used maybe by the artist? Let's say if you hold X amount of token, then you can get like the swag, or maybe you get to meet, you know, the person, or you know, like a lot of people tend to kind of focus on the speculative side in terms of what is the value of this token, right? But it's really
Right.
what is the redemption that you think there are some interesting ideas that you have in mind, you know, besides the one that you mentioned in terms of locking up and having access to exclusive content?
Yeah, I mean, I think the possibilities are endless. I think it's not the value of the token, it's the value of the community. What social tokens do is provide upside to a growing community of whatever the issuer is. You know, if they're a writer, if they're a musician, if they're a painter, whatever it might be, you know, just giving a means to basically participate in that community is really, really cool. You know, today what we're seeing is basically just access to private chat groups, to Telegram and Discord. We have people experimenting with private Discord or private newsletters, excuse me, for content. But to your point, I think any of those things make sense. And what I see emerging is like different tiered access, where the more tokens you get, sort of the better your benefits become. So it might be early access to a merch drop. It might be, like you said, a VIP dinner or something like that. I think these are ideas that we've touted around in the industry for quite a long time, but it's only now that we have like the tooling in place to be able to do it in such a way that it's not just restricted to like super, super deep down the rabbit hole crypto users.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that a lot. You know, having users that use the platform not for, you know, specifically because it's crypto and whatnot, right? But because they actually like the platform and functionality in there and everything, and then transitioning them kind of slowly into that crypto, or, you know, offering the ability to use crypto as a feature within the platform. And that has been kind of the idea that many projects have been, you know, playing around with. We you know, it's a tough kind of transition, or adding that feature to the platform. What do you guys think of in terms of when you're looking to do that? Are you going to be slowly rolling out each feature to make sure that the user base is not disrupted, or is there a timeline when you're looking to integrate this into the platform, you know, maybe this year or next year?
So right now, Audius uses a native wallet called Hedgehog. It's one that they built themselves, and is basically you log in with an email and a password. You don't see anything wallet related on the front end. There's a wallet for every user on the back end. And what we'll basically be doing is just opening up those feature sets to users very gradually. It's like, for example, for mainnet launch, maybe the first thing you see is just like a balance at the top of the page that shows how many audio tokens you have. You know, moving forward, there could be like a profile that shows your social tokens, but very incremental rollouts. You know, I think that user experience is at the topmost priority for Audius. Everything we do is rolled out in such a way that it has to be understandable by someone who has never heard of crypto before. And like taking that ethos to the way that we roll out feature integration specifically related to crypto, I think it's a very interesting way to get people curious about what's going on without them being overwhelmed the first time that they see it.
Yeah, we obviously have a lot of stake in this personal token kind of industry that's coming up with this LADS token. And we've talked with the Roll guys a few times, and I don't think we can, you know, have a lot of discussions we have in crypto. And I think we should talk more about regulation than we do sometimes. I'm interested in your thoughts on regulation on personal tokens. You know, we saw the BitMEX news kind of come out today. You know, if you're, it reminds me of the quote, pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. BitMEX is certainly a hog. It's one of the biggest ones. But when those hogs, they have the ability to kind of lawyer up. If you have a personal token where thousands of people are able to mint their own token and now it's being exchanged in value, those people don't necessarily have the means to kind of go out and hire a lawyer and make sure that they're taken care of. Where do regulations and social tokens go from here?
Totally. I think it all comes down to the intent of the issuer. You know, I think one of the big problems with ICOs was that capital formation was the primary use case of tokens. So like selling tokens for financial value in return. With social tokens, we can actually use distribution mechanisms to like just democratize access to a community in a way that's not capital driven. It's like you don't have to raise capital from people to give them their token. You don't have to promise financial benefits. There doesn't have to be any cash flows going back to the token. I think that when creators approach social tokens as a kind of like a rewards token, you know, this is what REC is doing, where Patreon subscribers are getting tokens, tape redeemers are getting tokens, like just approaching it from like, this is not a means to make money. This is a means of like better engaging community. and structuring the use cases and sort of the utility around that, rather than this is supposed to be a moonshot. Arguably, inevitably, that's going to happen anyway, but just sort of being very open and transparent about that, like, this is not intended to be speculative. There's no cash flow coming back to this token. This does not have inherent value to it other than the value of the community that's in it. I think it's a good stepping stone. It's a very gray area and one that the industry as a whole is still getting over. And I'm kind of optimistic that social tokens will be treated in such a way that it can be seen that it's not meant for capital formation.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that answer, because if you look at the BitMEX side of things, then it's kind of very clear there's, speculation that's driving, the value, and it's all about, making profit and whatnot, right? There's no KYC and, there's obviously a big red line there. But I like the way you explained it, and it kind of reminds me of, it's kind of like the points like air miles or something like that, that you have, you can redeem for some kind of a service or whatnot, right? Or points, and within some kind of a service that you can redeem to, to gain access to a certain level of the community or whatnot. So that's absolutely, fantastic. And like, I love the growth that we've seen in that sector so far, right? What are some other sectors that you're, kind of excited about that we haven't really seen kind of flourish just yet, or they're on the edge of really booming?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's just an overlap of all of them, right? We're now seeing like cross sectors where NFT projects are using DeFi to their advantage. Social tokens are using DAOs to their advantage. I don't think it's a new sector. I think it's just a mending of all the popular sectors we've seen and combining them in such a way that you can take, the diehard supporters of DeFi, mix them with the diehard supporters of NFTs, and create sort of platforms that have the best of both worlds, and trying to just stop this tribalism that's such an issue, not only in the wider crypto landscape, but even in Ethereum, right? Like, we see DeFi people who say NFTs are stupid, NFT people who say that DeFi is stupid, like, just lowering those really dumb barriers and like unifying the whole space. That's kind of what's got me excited about like the composability of the sectors as a whole.
Yeah, I think it was Jiho from Maxi that said it's not about NFTs, it's not about DeFi, it's not about DAOs, it's about all three together. So I definitely appreciated that, and you just kind of you kind of said that as well there. So McCormick did kind of come out and talk a little shit on NFTs. We saw a lot of people that came from DeFi that thought they were NFT experts right around meme launch. We saw that. So what do you say to the detractors that say NFTs are essentially valueless? Especially like, I believe it's mostly around the art and collectible scene, but what do you say to those detractors?
It's a good question, man. It's a conversation I haven't really participated too actively in. I mean, you can only own one NFT yourself, like just as you can only own the Mona Lisa once. Anyone can take a picture of that on their phone, but they don't actually own it. I just think that it's a weird time where like digital ownership is not like as tangible as it feels with physical items. I think that line will slowly become more and more obvious over time. But I don't know, if you can't see the value in a scarce digital asset and sort of understand why a digital asset can't have scarcity, then I think it's just the wrong space for you to be looking into in the first place. It's so glaringly obvious to me that there's a million use cases of that I'm not really too worried about trying to convince everyone who thinks they don't have value, because there's 100x other people who think that they do.
I completely agree with that. I've tried to stay away from the conversations with people that really just don't like collectibles in art, because it's kind of a non-starter convo. They just don't kind of get the value prop there. All right, so this has been a great conversation. I think we probably can touch on NFTs a little bit more in what you see in that industry. So as far as the NFT sector goes, what are you kind of looking at there? I know there's collectibles, like we talked about, there's art, there's metaverses, there's different permissioned access via NFTs. What do you make?
Yeah, I think it's just the index bet on all of them. I touched on it a bit earlier, but basically NFT platforms having governance tokens. So Rarible is a good example of this. Aave is a good example of this. Just ways for people to participate in NFT ecosystems without buying the tangible NFTs themselves. I think there's going to be interesting ways where, as someone interested in the wider NFT ecosystem, I can come in and buy a token that will increase with the value of the platform as a whole, rather than me needing to spend 5 hours researching the traits of an Axie, the best meta in the game right now, where the best land in a metaverse is. If I can just come in and buy a token that's an aggregate bet as that whole platform, that feels much more natural to me, and I think a big catalyst for why this sector has long ways to go.
Love that answer, man. I'm definitely excited to see the growth of the NFT sector. I think we've been silently waiting a little bit, maybe a couple of years. I know I guess CryptoPunks and CryptoKitties were about 3 years ago now. So it's good to see people finally start to take interest. Before we hop out and kind of talk social tokens for one last portion here, do you have anything more on Audius that maybe we didn't touch on already?
No, I just think that for anyone who hasn't used it yet, definitely check it out. The reason why I joined that team is it's a project that I feel very passionate about. I've been working in the space for about 3 or 4 years amorphously, and I haven't joined a team in a formal capacity since. So like just me willing to take that leap and like really join them, I think is a testament to how exciting I think that project is, how strong I think the team is. And if you haven't tried it out yet, it's actually pretty incredible. Like how many people are using it that have no clue what's going on with crypto, and how big of a profile they have with top artists that are just sort of, in my opinion, one of the biggest bridges to the mainstream we've seen in crypto to date.
100%. Love that answer. Do you guys plan on kind of launching a like streaming service by any chance, like where podcasts can go and maybe people can listen to that?
Yeah, you can upload a podcast today if you wanted to. It's basically just like SoundCloud, where you can upload any form of audio and share it however you'd like.
Amazing, man. All right. So the last couple questions I had kind of revolved around social tokens. We've seen the ones that you're obviously interested in. We mentioned them on the podcast. We have lads here today that we're planning on having some big announcements here in October. What are some other social tokens that you kind of see down the line or now that people may not know of?
Yeah, there's a group called Friends with Benefits that's really exciting to me. So basically the creator of Lil Michaela, which is an AI-based influencer on Instagram with about 3 million Instagram followers. The creator of that project, super into technology, pretty big degen trader. He started a social token called FWB, and it basically has a creator group where so many people that are just like at the fringes of crypto, you know, they're not deep down the rabbit hole. They're just sort of hanging out, talking about advancing culture collectively. It's a group that has a ton of new faces in it. And, you know, for someone like me who's been in a ton of groups at this point, finding a group of people that I've never met before is like very exciting to me, and one that I think is a growing testament to bringing new people into crypto that have just barely tried it for the first time.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. I really love your opinion about the index of the, and different areas of NFTs where you can get exposure to that growing sector just in general without, kind of down into every single, piece of things. It kind of reminds me of the, the DeFi side of things with the Wi-Fi, where you're just chasing the best APR that's available at that time. And if that's something like that rolls out for NFT side of things, that's pretty, fascinating. And again, it's kind of like combining like the DeFi and NFT guys together, the collectors and let's say the traders, right? And often we ask this question, it's like, what is going to be the outcome of that? You have the kind of the speculators, the hardcore guys that are looking to, maybe flip some art really quick. And then you have the collectors, the holders, the ones that are like, holding on to their cards instead of just flipping them, right away. Do you think, that's a healthy mix of the market, or which side do you think is going to dominate more? The collectors, or is it the speculators that are going to be saturating the market?
I would say it's just the active participants. So basically the people who are like actively using these platforms every day. They might be speculators, they might be holders, but just someone who's like, not there just buying a token once and then never touching it for like 5 years. We're seeing a lot of token models where the more active you are in the curation of a platform, the more upside you gain, whether it's in the form of tokens or governance power, whatever it might be. I think across DeFi, NFTs, and social tokens, creating token models in such a way that your curators earn the most issuance or earn the most tokens from their actions. It's a trend that I'm really excited about, and one that sort of really just epitomizes why Web3 is so exciting, and sort of the way that as a user of a protocol, you can tangibly earn financial value off of your specialized knowledge of it.
Awesome, Cooper. This has been a great interview. There aren't many people out there, honestly, that have their hands on Web3 and kind of driving us forward like yourself, man. So this has been a very broad interview. I'm glad we got to touch on Audius and what you guys are doing. It seems like a really awesome platform that's going about it the right way. Again, great to have you. The last question I have for you, man. When are you coming in the lads community? When are you getting yourself some lads, man?
Today, man. Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on again, Coop. We'll have you on here in a couple months, possibly, to see where you're at. Obviously, that's going to be in it feels like 2 years, but we can't wait to maybe get out to LA and get to some events with you as well, man. So appreciate you hopping on the channel.
Of course. Always a great time, man. Thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to seeing this when it comes live.
Absolutely. And if you make it to the East Coast, we'll be happy to meet you in New York and spend some time there as well.
Nice. Looking forward to it, man.
Awesome.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to check out Layer 1 on all the audio and video platforms listed in the description. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next week.